What is up, friends? YouTube and motorcycle enthusiasts, Accelerate here, and I got to do a Graham Jarvis clinic at Kairos Resorts. This is a long one, but it's all Graham doing his skills and drills and instruction, and then demonstrations. And that's pretty much it. Hope you guys get something out of this and enjoy it. Get out there, get on two wheels, ride a dirt bike. Enjoy, guys.
So cool. So, first few exercises, like I say, are on flat ground. So if we go into technical riding, there's quite a lot of things to think about. It might be 3 or 4 points on a technique. So what we do is try and break it right down. So, getting controls is the first one. So covering the brakes, being able to ride slow, covering the brakes, slipping the clutch is the first exercise. So we learn the fundamentals, the more technical stuff becomes a lot easier to get into good habits. So these first few, we want to be doing the technique naturally, but anything new, you've got to focus, obviously get into a good habit, get the technique. So the clutch, generally where it is covered all the time. If you get into trouble, controlling the bike, a lot of the skill, the controls from the clutch. So one finger preferably. So you might get a little bit tired just using one finger, but anywhere you're pulling on the bars, aggressive, pulling up, you want a good grip on the bars. So sometimes you rest the hand a little bit, but the real technical stuff, try to get one finger on the clutch, or two, but if you got the whole hand, you can't clutch and pull at the same time. And then the brakes, we're on and off the brakes when we need them, but some of the slow riding technique, we're using the brakes to compress suspension, control the bike. That gives you a lot of control. And then you've got a feel on the brakes. So if you're just on and off with the brakes, you're going to be struggling to get the control. So it's all about feeling on the brakes. Obviously, coming downhill, we're feeling on the brakes, but slow riding, we're also feeling on the brakes to control the speed. Going over obstacles. One obstacle is you can fly over it fast, but when you've got multiple obstacles, you always want that control. Generally, we're riding, when you've got something technical, we're riding slow and keeping it moving rather than going in too fast, getting stuck, losing energy. That's kind of the key to the hard enduro. So the first exercise, we're covering the brakes, we're covering the clutch, front and rear brake. So rear is really important. It's easier than, front can be a bit awkward. So rear is really important. And then the gas, just set up a little bit. So when I demonstrate, you won't see anything moving too much. This is the key, that's slow riding, nothing's too aggressive. So just holding all the controls on that sweet point. And the first 2 exercises are the most important, because when you've got this, all the techniques after become a lot easier. So I'm not too hard on the brakes, just a little bit of gas, a little bit of brake, a bit of clutch, a little bit of everything. Any questions?
You slipping it through there a little bit?
Yeah, so just holding it on that point as well, not too on and off, and keeping even speed. So it's forcing you to feel on the brakes. You're kind of just pulling the brakes against the clutch a little bit, but just finding that sweet point where you can just keep moving, not too many revs, not too much brake, a little bit of clutch. Go, go, go. Do the brakes and the clutch, and then we're going to lean the bike in. So when we're turning slow, we're standing up, we're leaning the bike in, and you've got to balance with the body a little bit. So the position is to get your weight centered, or to the outside of the bike as such, and then turn the hips and the shoulders with the handlebars. This is a nice stable position, you can see on the brakes at the same time. So now we're going to have to feel on the brakes a little bit more when you're turning. Obviously too much front, it's going to unbalance it. But the balance actually comes from the brakes and the clutch now. Now I'll be using small movements to control the balance and obviously body position. And then leaning back as well. So anytime you lean back like this, I'm hanging on the bars, it's pressuring the weights on the back, it's pressuring the tyre for grip. So none of this really matters here too much, but the more technical it gets, these key points will become more important. So these are the fundamental positioning movements on the bike, which apply, like I say, to the more advanced stuff. So now we're going to transition left to right, try to get on more or less full lock. When you go into the right, you've got to stretch a little bit because you're to the outside, stretch on the wheel brake a little bit. And just exaggerate the position a little bit, stretch, move the body as much as you can. The engine note changing a little bit, so I am working the controls, like you still can't see the controls, the brakes and the clutch moving, because it's just small movements, feeling for the pressure.
When you're turning and adjusting after you're out, are you applying different pressures to different pegs? Like your outside leg, are you applying more pressure or less? Or?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't even think about that. I'm more thinking about body position and controls, and then you'll naturally weight the pegs accordingly. I think, you know, people do. It's not really. Well, I tried to think about that. People saying, "Oh, other people have said, "Oh, weight this peg, weight that peg." I don't know.
You're trying to stay balanced, aren't you? Whatever position the bike's in, you're trying to stay sort of.
So it even confused me thinking about what peg I'm. So I just think about position and controls and.
So do you have a strong side compared to a weak side turning?
I think not really. It's the rear brake sometimes. Left's obviously easier to get on the rear brake. You find that quite a lot. Left turns as well. You know, right turns, whatever it is. When you're on the, it's easier with the rear brake. Genuine. So yeah, keep these first ones, like I say, really important to set ourselves up for a bit of technical. And it's difficult to go into anything technical and try and explain this and learn, because you know when you're in something technical, you're thinking about too many things. So it will take a bit of focus, but you know it's worth putting the time into these first ones. Position just out in the open. Now we're trying to prepare for a line that we've got to put the bike on, stick to. So again, we're going to get the progression. So you can go in and out. You know, you don't have to go in and out every one. You know, just do whatever you can do. So the main thing is to get the technique. So we've got something to focus on, but we want to naturally do the brakes and the body position. So it's easy. What normally happens is I'll put some rocks in, you know, people are focused on the rocks, and then you start to forget the brakes and the body position because you're thinking about the rocks. So this needs to be natural. So it's better to do it really easy way first, and then until you've got the technique, and then, like I say, challenge the progression at your level. So you got a little bit of a log there as well. So the first one, if it's too tricky, just ride straight in and out the rocks, and you've got to get the transition. You've got to get body position, then you've got to transition at the right time. If you keep turning too long, you won't get back on the line. So it's trying to replicate a real situation. You can look at your line, you want to keep the bike on the line. It's all about exaggerating the body movement as well, because the harder it gets, the more you're going to have to move. But it's better to get the movement in an easy way, exaggerate it, lean back. So
smooth as silk. That dude's so smooth.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Super ridiculous.
I saw a video the other day that showed a professional rider and it said, what I think I would ride like, and it said somebody who rides like me, this is how I ride. I'm going to do that when I come back.
Celebration at the end if you get a clear run. Celebration of your choice. Or just say fuck you, Jarvis. Go back to a little bit of blowing riding, so a flat turn. So on the flat turn, it's all again. You want good control. You don't want to be. So flat turn. The key is to get on the side of the seat, so moving around on the side of the seat, and again leaning the bike in, but you're going faster, so we can sit down on this one and get your leg to the forks up the front. So a common mistake to be sat too far back. So if I'm here and I'm, I've got good position, I might be doing that, but if I'm sat too far back, soon the front's coming light, and as soon as you power it, if you power it, obviously front's coming up as well, and you want traction pushing in for the front wheel. So if you just from the middle to the front of the seat, even I, coming from trials, I tend to sit a bit too far back, but if you watch the top guys, they're right up the front, leg to the inside, leaning it in, and then just get that transition from left to right up the front of the seat a little bit. Back a little bit as well, but the main thing is the transition from the leg seat either side. Get the side of the seat in your ass crack. So this is a bit of a more faster technique, but there's technique for everything, whatever it is. Fast riding, getting stuff, getting on the top, whatever you're riding, technique. So the next one, the common mistakes to be sat down a little bit too much. So always a question, should we be standing up, sat down? But quite often coming in a straight line, generally speaking, if it's bumpy, you want to be standing up. So quite often coming in on a straight with standing up, and also you can brake a little bit better standing up. You can hold the pressure because you're braking harder, obviously with the front and rear brake. So the next one is to come in, you're going to be standing up, you're going to brake quite hard, leaning back, so you're holding pressure, and then transition to the roll into the turn. So that's quite an important technique, using it a lot. So I do is I come down here, get the leaning back, standing up, and then you transition into your, and then roll the corner. But get coordinated, and I'm also changing down a gear as I'm braking. You notice that. Obviously you can't come in, you've got to change down. You keep coming out in the correct gear. So just watch one more time, but just do it real slow. Get your braking position, change down the gear, off the brake, into your side of the seat technique. Up a little bit of the rear, doesn't matter, but just And again, it's always better to ride smooth, so a lot of the time can be lost on easier corners correcting your mistake. You know, if you're not balanced, position, you know, the back wheel's spinning to the side as you're coming out, it's always better to get that real smooth line.
Isn't that safe in here then? So we do it all in second, or you want us to change things?
Well, you've got to pretend, you know, you've got a long straight here, you're not going to be coming all the way in second. So you're in third or fourth, you've got to change down, coming in, you're going to have to change down, coming in the long straight. Good to practice this. Just, like I say, just do it slow, get it real smooth and in control, and then start to build the speed up. You start to become aware, you're starting to think what you're doing on the bike. Probably if you've not done training days before, you kind of just go hit the trails, you're not really aware of your body position, what you're doing with the brakes. So the key is to obviously be able to rectify your own mistakes. You start to work a little bit, you know, work it out for yourself, try different things, think about the technique a little bit more. So now we're going to hit the trail a little bit, so it's important to keep thinking about the technique. We're on the trail, now we're focused on the trail, you know, we don't want to forget about the technique. So that covering the brakes as well, you know, we do that on the faster stuff as well. So on the tight, twisty stuff especially, we're going from braking to clutch. And even this kind of practice, you know, the time, you know, if you're in a race or whatever, you save a lot of time just by braking a little bit harder and accelerating harder, but do it when you're straight. So you just do the turn efficiently, roll round, brake hard, do it a little bit slower on the turn, and then accelerate hard when you're straight. And it's a safe way of riding, because you know it's the turn where it can all go wrong. If your bike's in a straight line, it's generally a lot safer. You can, you know, you want to be braking hard, and when you're turning, you don't want to be accelerating. You know, it could be, this is grippy, but you know, when you've got slippery stuff, you're powering out the turn. Is a technique, but it's just, you know, if the bike's straight, you're going to be a lot safer. It's a safe way to ride, and just think, you know, you can power it when it's straight, when you're safe. And in the races as well, like Romaniacs, it's always a way up of, you know, where judging where it's safe to really push fast, and you know, when to play safe. So for example, it's all about predictability. So if your track's predictable, the grip's predictable, you know, you can see what's there. It's you know, you can push hard, but on the other way, you know, if it's slippery, grass or long grass, you can't see everything. You just go a little bit safer and more, a little bit more caution. So it's always, it's feeling, you know, when you feel safe on the bike, you know, push a little. You get, you know, your own ability and reactions. So it's just pushing hard when you feel a little bit safer, and just taking it cautious. You know, loose rocks as well, unpredictable, all the unpredictable stuff. So we go for a little ride, keep remembering the technique, move around on the bike. The movement, not just lifting the front, but also I'm weighting the front, and I'm weighting. So we're going to use the fork. So first to go up, you've got to pressure down. You want to catch the rebound of the fork. So to pressure down, start tall on the bike. So if we flex, start tall, arms straightish, legs straightish, lean back a little bit, and then flex down towards the radiators, hold pressure, and then transition to pulling up. So you can see the fork's already moving, they compress a little bit. Obviously on the stand's restricting it a little bit. But just get that movement. You've got to flex down with the legs and extend the legs, pressure the bars, pull on the bars. So that's the fundamental movement. And practice doing that with the brakes covered as well, because the next step, I can come around, hold the bike, but you know, the goal is to bounce the front wheel with the engine off. So really difficult exercise, but what it does, it gets us in the mindset of using the body and suspension rather than gas. If we go straight in and I'm saying gas and clutch and pressure down, pull up, there's obviously too many things to think about. So again, we're breaking it down a little bit, and then the next step, you can get someone to hold the bike, or you can see getting the coordination, just arms and legs working, keep head and shoulders stable, and then after 20 seconds your lungs will start to work as well. legs are burning a little bit. So it's just getting a feel for that suspension. So don't worry if you can't do it either, because as long as you get suspension compressing and pulling a little bit, get the body movement. Go, go, go. To do a bit more technique to the wheelie, we can explain, or we can go hit the trails, which we prefer. Any preference?
Well, I keep doing some wheelies.
Yeah, when you are up, what is the best way to stay up?
Yeah, so it's hard to keep it, you know, uphill you can hold it just with a clutch. So uphill is a good way to practice, you build confidence. And obviously when you get on the flat, you've got to go a little bit higher, and you can stay leaning back is the key, because it's the clutch and the brake that's going to control the front. So that comes back to the very first exercise, feeling on the clutch and the brake. So you're doing basic, fundamental on an advanced technique. So you guys, you know, most of you getting a good lift, so you want to just take that speed out of it, because any element of carrying speed, if you hit an obstacle, you can get into trouble. So you know, you can hit one obstacle fast, like I say, but the key is to have the control afterwards, and to be able to from a slow speed as well. So it's going to be first gear. So we've done that first movement. If you remember one thing, is to start pull on the bike and flex down with your legs, because that obviously pressures down and gives you a good position to pull up. If you just stay static, you know, it's probably going to spin up. Or, you know, when you flex down, you're pushing the rear into grip and it's giving you leverage, pressuring everything down to pull up. So just get that basic movement, you've got a good chance of getting over the obstacle. So, and then we want to start to bring in the brakes again. So I said, you know, when we were doing that braking and transitioning to clutch, that was the first part of the wheelie technique. So, you know, I was trying to get you guys to bounce with the engine off. It's a difficult exercise. In reality, it's a lot easier, because if you're coming along, first gear, you pull the brakes, the force of the brakes compresses the fork. So if we combine brakes in and flex the legs down, that gives us a really efficient pressure down. So we can practice that transition to start flexing the legs. We did it before, but now we're going to add flexing the legs into it as well. So brakes in, clutch in, legs down, brakes off, clutch out, legs up.
Quite simple.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so there's a lot of things to think about, obviously, with the wheelies, so we break it down as much as we can, but basically you've got the bike doing that without any pushing or pulling, just the timing of the brakes and the transition to the clutch. Again, what's the clutch? It's tension on the clutch all the time, it's there, you're just getting that transition. You don't want to pressure down and roll back, you don't want to pressure down and hesitate. You've got to get the transition quickly from brake to still stop and then move forward. Now you can, I was saying knees forward, now you can just sit more central, because it's the force of the brake you're just basically holding pressure. So try not to physically trying to push down, because you're just holding pressure with the brakes in your legs and your arms, and then as you transition to clutch, you're obviously pulling away, so you hang on the bars anyway. So if you get that timing, it's obviously the first step to prepare for a really efficient wheelie. But don't go for the wheelie yet, just get focused on that transition. Front and rear brake. But if you're really struggling with either one, so you might be too heavy on the rear and you're not coming off, you might stall it, get the timing, you're struggling, you can use just the front or you can use just the rear. And in reality, when we do the wheelies, we don't always use the brakes. Uphill, for example, carrying speed, you don't use the brakes. Coming downhill, you're going to be using both brakes, sometimes on the flat both brakes, sometimes just the rear. So we adjust it depending on the situation. Like a lot of techniques, you learn the fundamental, but hard enduro, every situation is different, every log, every rock, every bit of grip, every gradient, so we just adapt the fundamental to the situation. Not like tennis where it's the same all the time. Good. The advanced stuff is just putting it together. So I'm trying to look for the progression level for everybody. But what we do is a log or a tyre or a rock or whatever it is, we're going to run the front wheel on the log, on the obstacle, and the back wheel stays on the ground. So when I'm riding, and turning, I'm always thinking a line for the front wheel and a line for the rear wheel, trying to get the rear wheel on the flattest line. And when the front wheel's up high, you've got even more pressure on the rear tyre, and it's obviously keeping your footrests and stuff a little bit higher as well. So leaning back pressures the tyre, front wheel up higher, more pressure on the back for grip. So quick and easy one. We can also put some rocks in as well. Downhill, you're going to use the brakes more, but covering the brakes is important anyway at this slow speed. And sometimes it's not lifting the front wheel on, you're just helping the front wheel onto it, but you're still using suspension to help the front wheel on. I always say these smaller techniques are the hardest than some of the bigger stuff, because you've got to have the small movements, and you can see the front wheel wasn't lifting off at all. I was just coming really close and just helping the front wheel on, but it's them little movements of the clutch and the brakes, and you can imagine for a rocky section you're doing this multiple times, and that's where all the control comes from. Another next progression is front wheel on, flex again, start to float the front. Sometimes you're floating from one rock to another.
And yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
I know, right? So smooth. Everything is just, it's like he's on his couch. That's how smooth, like he's just like
I need somebody that's not
like just like reaching for a glass of water. Like it's just so effortless.
Oh, there you go.
Oh snap.
Oh, I think that's good. Yeah.
There's some movement.
He is human.
That comfort.
Hopefully you can see how it comes back to the very first exercises. I'm controlling everything on the brake, using the legs a little bit, clutch. Any questions? So maybe I'll put a little rock, find a rock so we can more or less roll the front wheel onto that log. So that's probably quite a good one. Downhill it's forcing you to use the brakes a little bit. And then you can obviously move along to the different lifts. Any questions? You must have a question, Jared. You've always got questions.
You want me to go get one of them rocks?
Good idea. Bigger looks so smooth. Yeah, once you first thing is understand the technique, and you can just obviously the small movements are key. Coordinating. A bit of practice.
A bit.
38 years of practice helps.
fair.
Yeah, you're doing really good. You can see, you're starting to think differently now, hopefully, about the controls. You start to feel a bit safer on the bike as well. You've got something to focus on now. Trying to take the element of luck out of obstacles is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not, obviously just trying to get that progression, make it as aggressive technique as possible.
He makes that bike look so
Got the
good.
wrong size rock, goddammit! Trying to do anything right. Yeah. Not much a helpful rock, not the best, but you've got to hit it square on. Now you can roll up a little bit. But you can imagine in a rocky section how when it gets to rocks everywhere, not necessarily big rocks but the small stuff, the precision of the line of the wheels and the control becomes really important. Different ways to pressure the tyre now. So we spoke about if you're leaning back, you're pressuring the tyre, but obviously different positions on the bike. So sometimes you're putting one foot on the rock or whatever it is, you might be changing feet, but you try to keep one foot on the peg and then put in wherever you want, so you've got one foot on the peg, you've got control of pressure to the rear tyre. So two reasons why it's spin, no weight on the rear, or too aggressive with the clutch. So if this position, you can see just by leaning back it's pushing it down. So this position and then slipping the clutch is a really good way to find traction at the rear, and you can obviously move your foot and you can push with this foot as well. So that's one way, and then you can go into this position, paddle through on the rocks. But anytime you're sat down, you've lost a little bit of control. That's standing up, you've got more control with your upper body. So quite often we're like this, we can move upper body on a hill, so that's one technique. And we're chugging away in Romania, typically we're in this position quite a lot because it's efficient, it's low energy. If you're standing up, you're obviously pulling on the bars more, but this, it's low energy, you're pressuring the back and then you're feathering the clutch or whatever if you need. And then, but this is restrictive because obviously you power it here, front's going to come up and you can't hit stuff fast in this position because it'll start kicking you off a little bit at the rear. You've lost control of suspension basically. So I think it'd be good just to demonstrate, when you're chugging away up a hill and it spins up on a root or a rock or whatever it is. We'll be doing that and then it'll spin up. So always looking around, see what's happening at the back. You want to know exactly what's at the rear wheel, and then roll back from whatever it's stuck on, because if it's pushing against the rock you're not going to go anywhere, and then go spinning up. Roll back away from the step to make sure you don't lose if it's downhill. And then common mistake to stay in this position, trying to stop the front wheel coming up. You need confidence to stay back and then pull your weight forward, so you throw your weight to the front of the bike. But pull forwards first and then zap the clutch. trying to avoid any, pushing the bike. Sometimes, there's technique for pushing as well, but you can do that low energy technique. And then if you do have to push, make sure you get your feet good is the first thing. You don't want to slip with your feet. I'm trying to avoid normally being too close if you're pushing down. So you step right back, lean the bike, and then you push behind the bars rather than down. It pushes it a lot better. And sometimes it's just moving the front wheel. So if you're stuck going straight, sometimes you just push to the side and then go up. So if your front wheel's pushing into anything, that can really, it's only if it's a small rock, it can stop it. Then you can roll back a little bit as well and push at the same time. For example, this 1 foot technique on the just like that. Shit, tyre. Any questions? So, yes, we go for this gully here. So probably if you're on a harder route, drop in early, a little bit easier. I'm not going to let you tie down. So it's difficult for me to say, oh, I'll let you tie right down, then you get a puncture, so I don't want that possibility. But you let you tie down, it will. Fucking Jarvis, you told me to let me tie down those fucking punches, you cunt. I've heard it all before. A nice slope. We've got a good kick somewhere with grip for the front. Again, you just want to build confidence. So roll down, wait to the back wheel just before this route, and pressure the pegs. So pressure the pegs, flex down with the legs, push in, and then transition all the weight to the bars at the same time. Front brake. Just taking that off the bars. And then you can stay leaning back because pressure on the bars you can still do with straight arms leaning back. It's not really about weight forwards, it's about pressure in the bars. And as you get that transition, it's the timing with the front brake and the back wheel to come up a little bit. So getting that transition from pegs to bars is important. And then get a little hot, build again, get the suggestion a little hot. And then you can put a turn in as well if you want. So you turn, press it down, and twist it round. To get it to move, you lean your body into the way you want to go and flip it round your hip.
Saw a dude the other day, some foreign guy came down a tight switchback and he endoed the front and he just swung the back end around and he guided the front.
Foreigners are getting
It was sweet to see though, yeah.
He's American.
No, he wasn't married to European.
same go, one more option on that. Now a good technique for this. So I know all this is like, we're doing it in a small way, but it all relates to like the more gnarly stuff. You can do that one and then put a rock down. Another important technique is to take the front wheel around the rock. Back wheel's going to hit the rock. So same with I said with the front, when it hits in. I didn't do that bit, that was the other day. So when your front wheel hits something, you can also use that to lift up. And the same with the back. If the back wheel hits the rock, it's compressing, so we can use that pressure in to help lift the back wheel up from the flat. Obviously you can do this technique from the flat, but you've got to use even more suspension. But quite often, in a rocky section, we're pressing into a rock and then lifting it off. So you've got to keep the weight through, and it gives you a feeling for what the back wheel's doing. You're feeling for the suspension hitting the rock, and that's really important to feel that pressure in when you're riding.
What was your body position because you could see you were giving a bit of a push right when you were starting the downhill?
Yeah.
So your body sort of like lurched forward.
Pack's open, buddy.
Kind of pressure down here and then extending
You will
back.
fill out. Yeah, double check me.
Seems like you
This bag
It was this right here.
Yeah, so
Well, if anything, just be food.
give it a little
Good.
blip at the same time.
Or the key to my
As you
truck.
pressure down, that
we're
also
good.
pushes in a little bit more and gives you that bit of. You don't want to come in too far because the front's going to skid.
I'm so bad about it, dude.
You
What's
come
your
and
name?
get a little
Casey.
bit of
Casey,
power
Josh.
to push down and help transition in. Even little rocks like this, push the back wheel into that and then it'll help kick it up. A little bit, just to push it in a little bit harder. So that's without the brakes, and then just practice landing on the brakes afterwards. Cover the brakes. Now to the right, pressure down. Let's say you get it wrong, or first of all, let's say you nose dive into the rock. So it's similar to the lifting up. So we've got the brakes, we pressure down, and then we slip the clutch onto it. That comes back to holding it on the brakes when you're there. And then if you get stuck on the log, the key is any kind of pushing the engine's against the log, so there's no point pushing like this. So what you can do is go back to the so that tension on the clutch. So you press your feet, hang on the bars, tension on the clutch, and the front wheel comes up. You've got to come up with the front. So you pressure your feet. then sometimes on the bigger stuff, or if that's not working, another option might be to pull it round the front wheel onto the log. Any questions? Everybody happy to try this? Or? Yeah. Yeah, we can put a help in as well, but so the big log, you've got to think, it's not like a step you've got to get onto. You've literally got to get the engine onto it. So you can almost do that by wheeling into it. But if you stay back, it's just going to go like that. If you wheel into it and then transition to the front, you get the seesaw effect.
Yep.
So as long as you can get the front wheel up high enough to wheel into it and then transfer your weight forward, you've got as soon as the engine's on, you're over basically. You obviously got to get that, again, it's a little bit that transition to the front. But do your technique at the beginning, flex down. A little bit of brake if you can, but you can still get over it with speed as well, so the braking just gives you extra control. But as long as you're starting up, you've got a good lift. You can attack it a little bit if you want, because you can hit it quite fast. You just got to be ready. When the back hits, front up, it's going to come down and over. So you can do this real slow as well if you like. So a big tap on the linkage a little bit, like no linkage, or you have to back the slider. And then the progression from that.
You've been over it already. Yeah, exactly. I was about to.
Hop over it, clear the engine straight over as well. Just start to punch in a little bit and zap a little bit more. You also start playing.
Sick.
Same technique, is just starting to zap a little bit more. But first one, I don't know if we can tackle this side a little bit more. Maybe to the fuck you, Jarvis.
It's a trash bike.
So give it a go, but if you're not confident, you've got a stepping stone to build the confidence with the front in the air. So the key's to go up on a banking, and then you've got something to hold the rear wheel against and get a feel for the front wheel in the air. And it comes to that clutch control as well. As soon as you clutch out, it's going to tip you off. So you often when I'm turning as well, I look to get the front wheel up high in the beginning because the front's lighter. You just run the front wheel up there when you want to turn around sometimes. Front up the banking, bring it around, but put up the front. Some smaller hops as well, and getting out of trouble. I'm always looking to get the front wheel up high first, run it up high, and then it's easier to lift rather than obviously lifting from the front. But anywhere, try to pick somewhere with quite a steep slope, because it's a gentle slope, you can't hold the back wheel against it, so probably like them steeper bits over there a bit better.
Mid-trick, man.
Alright, let's see what we got here. Unreal.
Yeah, dude. Cool as a cucumber, dude.
On a bike he's never ridden. That's what blows my mind.